If you haven't said something, you haven't said anything on this campus. But on this occasion, this event, I couldn't wait for it to start because it's supposed to be the crowning event of the Other Universals project, which is in its sixth and final year. I coordinate the project here at the University of Ghana. In August, we had another crowning event for the consortium in Johannesburg. But at the University of Ghana Hub, this event is supposed to mark the very of the entire project. So it's an event organized by Reading Decolonization in Africa today, a reading group here at the Institute, which again I coordinate, and other universal project and Institute of African Studies seminar series. My name is Chikamba. My job is very simple. So I will soon hand over to those for whom you are all seated or here at Kethia or listening in from online. I'll soon hand over to them. I couldn't have imagined a better presenter for this event than the person we have invited, nor imagined a better chair than the professor that is going to chair and moderate the event in the person of Professor Akosua Adomako Ampofo. She has always honored all our invitations to chair and moderate all the hard work. And at the end of the event, we'll spend maybe another 1 minute just to thank her for that supportive role, for the mentorship, for all she has done for those of us who are early career at the Institute and the university. Professor Akosua Adomako Ampofo is Professor of African Studies and Gender Studies at the Institute of African Studies here at the University of Ghana. At a scholarship, questions of identity and power within families, academic spaces. Her work and leadership spanning 3 decades have been recognized worldwide, including being one of the former directors of the Institute. Please, Professor Adomako Ampofo, I hand over to you to pilot the rest of the event.
Thank you very much, Chika, and good afternoon to you all. I am so pleased to see so many of our students in the room, which I believe says a lot for both Chika, whose project this is a slice of, as well as the speaker and the topic that we are having today. And welcome also to everyone who's joining us online. So today we're going to be talking about Haiti and Africa and some of the unfinished business of this Black project of emancipation and surviving and thriving, and you know what it means for us and where we've come from. And we have a very, well, Chika said we couldn't have had a better speaker, so let me just copy and paste your words. We couldn't have had a better speaker. We have Dr. Jemima Pierre, and yeah, it's like Regina. Sorry, forgive me. So it's Jemima, right? Anybody who feels tempted to say Jemima, this is the 3rd time I'm saying it, it's Jemima Pierre. All right. She's a distinguished Faculty of Arts professor of African and African Diaspora Studies in the Institute of Race, Gender, Sexuality, and Social Justice, as well as a faculty associate in the Department of Anthropology at the University of British Columbia, Vancouver, Canada. She's also a research associate at the Center for the Study of Race, Gender, and Class at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. She reminded me this morning that we met, it must be 3 decades ago. Yes, she must have been extremely young because I was doing my graduate studies at the time. So, and we've met again, but I cannot remember where. And since I'm older, I'm allowed to forget that. But she's been very active in many spaces, and of course, I've been following her work, anything to do with Haiti. Trained as a sociocultural anthropologist in the African Diaspora Program at the University of Texas, Austin, her research and teaching engages with Africa and the African diaspora across three broad areas of inquiry. One, the relationship of political economy to race, as articulated through capitalism, white supremacy, and imperialism. Two, migration, transnationalism, and diaspora. And three, the ethics and politics of Western knowledge production and disciplinary formation. Okay, so we're looking at a lot of the areas intersecting in what these days we'll be saying decolonialism. And as we keep saying, that's not new. People have been working on that since. Professor Pierre has published widely. Her essays and articles have examined the racial history of the discipline of anthropology, race and colonialism, theories of the African diaspora, the cultural politics of racial formation in Africa, Western resource extraction in Africa, and the history and politics of US imperialism in Haiti and the Caribbean. She's the author of The Predicament of Blackness, Post-Colonial Ghana and the Politics of Race, which I will strongly urge not only our history students, not only our political science students to read, to find. And I think we have a copy in the Institute of African Studies library. We do, yes. And the main library, okay. Anyway, I'm making a plug for our own library. The Predicament of the, so there's another work of hers, The Predicament of Blackness. Sorry, so back to The Predicament of Blackness, which we have in our library, was the winner of the 2014 Elliott Skinner Book Award in Africanist Anthropology and longlisted for the 2013 OCM Bocas Literary Prize. Her next book, titled Of Natives, Ethics, and True Negroes, A Counter-History of Anthropology, will be published in 2025. So we'll be looking out for that. Born in Gros-Morne, Haiti, did I pronounce that correctly? Gros, it's a silent S, it's the French people's thing. Okay, Gros-Morne, Haiti, and raised in Miami, Florida. After that, she joined UBC, University of British Columbia, and she was with the Department of African American Studies at the University of California, Los Angeles. So we are very pleased, very, very pleased. I'm really looking forward to this presentation. Let's welcome our speaker very warmly and enjoy. Well, enjoy, in quotes.
Hello, everyone. It is my absolute honor to be here. I was telling Professor Ampofo that I met her when I was an exchange student at Legon, staying at Mensa Saba Hall in the 90s. I'm aging myself, but that was 3 decades ago. All right. And she was a graduate student, and I was brought to Ghana for the first time by Professor Francis Dodu, who I see was an acting director of this department, this institute for a couple of years. So it's great it's an honor to be here, to come back as a professor as opposed to an undergraduate student. And I'm extremely, extremely happy to be in Ghana. I'd like to thank Professor Mba for extending the invitation, as well as the Other Universals Project and the Institute of African Studies staff and students for making this work. Speaking of students, I'd like to thank Eric for all his support since I've been here and since we met in South Africa, for encouraging me to take this on. So I'm grateful to be here. I did write my lecture, so I'm going to go right ahead and get to it so that we can get to a discussion later on. Okay, so the title is Haiti, Africa, and the Unfinished Project of Black Sovereignty. On June 25th of this year, 400 Kenyan police officers began arriving in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, to begin what is called a multinational security support mission. This mission was approved by the UN Security Council Resolution 26991. Thank you. Passed under the Chapter 7, Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, which allows the use of deadly force against individual states. A Chapter 7 UN resolution is rare and only applied to countries embroiled in violent conflict, often a civil war, and when this conflict is a threat to so-called international peace. There is no civil war in Haiti, despite what CNN tells you. And the resolution does not explain how the activities of a small groups of armed men operating mostly in the capital city of a presumed sovereign country presents a threat to international peace and security. Under the guise of a Western narrative of gang violence and the idea that Haiti is a failed state, Western politicians and media have been able to manufacture consent around an old, consistent, and racist stereotype that Haitian people cannot rule themselves and therefore do not deserve sovereignty. This trope has been accepted by many throughout the world, including many within the global African population. This is perhaps the only thing that can explain how the world has so easily accepted yet another US invasion of Haiti. It may also explain why this latest US imperialist venture in Haiti has been openly aided by a blackface masquerade of a contingent of mercenaries from Africa and the Caribbean. Now, while it is sanctioned by the UN Security Council and called a multinational mission, the current military invasion of Haiti is not an official UN mission. It is primarily paid for by the US, with a few countries volunteering what are, in effect, mercenaries. Most significantly is that the latest plan for foreign armed intervention in Haiti, the first free revolutionary republic in the modern world, is supposedly led by Kenya. It is important to note that Kenya did not have diplomatic relations with Haiti until 20th September 2023, and that this entire move to have Kenya supposedly lead a military invasion and occupation was concocted by the United States when it was unable to get a full armed UN mission to Haiti in 2022. Kenya was bought off by increasing IMF funding, $600 million for an invasion force, a major non-NATO ally status, and most egregiously, the promise of a US state visit. Kenya, an African nation 12,000 miles away from Haiti, was said to have asked for this role. To add insult to injury, Kenyan President William Ruto insisted that this is a military mission of Pan-African solidarity. Yet I would argue that an invasion and occupation of Haiti by an African country on behalf of the US hegemon is not Pan-Africanism, but Western imperialism in blackface. By agreeing to send troops into Haiti, the Kenyan government is assisting in undermining the sovereignty and self-determination of Haitian people, while serving the neo-colonial interests of the United States. But the calls for military intervention in Haiti have ignored an important and consequential fact. Haiti is already under foreign occupation. Haiti officially lost its sovereignty in late February 2004 through a US, France, and Canada-led coup d'etat in an occupation that has been managed by the machinery of the United Nations. The plans for the 2004 intervention and occupation were hatched the previous year at a meeting in Canada dubbed the Ottawa Initiative on Haiti. Canadian Prime Minister Jean Chrétien and his Liberal Party government organized a two-day conference in January 2003 at Meech Lake, a government resort near the capital city of Ottawa, that brought together top officials from the United States, the European Union, and the Organization of American States to decide the future of Haiti's governance. There were no representatives of Haiti in attendance. Canadian journalist Michel Vastel reported that the secret discussions in Ottawa were about the removal of Haiti's democratically elected president and the potential imposition of a Western-led trusteeship over Haiti. Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister Denis Paredes would later admit that this secret meeting didn't take place, but clarified that the discussion was about whether Haitian sovereignty was immutable. In other words, whether Haitian sovereignty was necessary. On February 29, 2004, President Jean-Bertrand Aristide, Haiti's first democratically elected president, was deposed, bundled onto a flight by US Marines who had landed in his house and flown to the Central African Republic. By the evening of Aristide's kidnapping, 2,000 US, French, and Canadian soldiers were already on the ground in Haiti. But this coup d'etat was then cleaned up by the United Nations, which under the leadership of the UN Security Council permanent members, US and France, the same two countries behind the coup d'etat, voted to dispatch a so-called peacekeeping mission to Haiti. The mission was deployed under Chapter 7 mandate allowing foreign soldiers to use full force against the population. The UN took over from the US, Canadian, and French forces and established the United Nations Stabilizing Mission in Haiti, or MINUSTA, its French acronym. This was for the task of military occupation under the guise of establishing peace and security. A multi-billion-dollar operation, MINUSTA had at any given time between 6,000 and 12,000 troops and police stationed in Haiti, alongside thousands of civilian personnel. The military wing of the MINUSTA mission was led by Brazil, which provided the lion's share of soldiers. However, this multinational military mission occupation force also contained soldiers from all over the world, especially from the global south. The UN occupation under MINUSTA was marked by its brutality towards Haitian people. Civilians were attacked and assassinated. So-called peacekeepers committed sexual crimes. UN soldiers dumped feces into the rivers used for drinking water, unleashing a cholera epidemic that killed 40,000 people and sickened 1 million. The UN has never been held accountable for these crimes against the Haitian people. The 2004 occupation was solidified through the creation and operationalization of the Core Group, a group of US, European, and Latin American officials, a colonial entity that has effectively ruled Haiti since the coup d'etat in 2004. The occupation of Haiti that began in 2004 and that continues should be considered the most successful exercise of neo-imperial sabotage. The US, France, and Canada were able to remove a democratically elected and popular president, bypass the country's constitution, and over the past 20 years, install prime ministers and presidents while overseeing the complete dismantling of the Haitian state. By late 2023, the terms of the last elected Haitian official had expired. Haiti currently has no elected officials and no legitimate government. This is, in other words, the manufacturing of a so-called failed state under continuous occupation. Now, I begin this discussion of the callously calculated destabilization of Haiti and the usurpation of its sovereignty by the US and its Western allies, along with the unwitting participation of the world, to present a set of provocations about Black sovereignty. To do so, I place the history of Haiti, the first free Black republic in the modern world, born of the revolt of enslaved Africans, at the center of debates and history on the early 20th century consolidation of European imperial control of the African continent. In the struggle to hold on to its sovereignty, Haiti's 200+ year experience with the West brings into clear focus the structural and racial inequities of the present international system. I argue that we should all learn from the experiences of Haiti in the context of a hegemonic Western system of global governance to understand the workings of neocolonialism in the current moment and the challenges to Black self-determination. In the rest of my presentation, I aim to provide extracts of such an analysis of the workings of neocolonialism as a way to understand the pitfalls of neocolonial rule in Haiti and throughout the African continent. Taking as a point of departure my current work in my book, my forthcoming book of Natives, Ethnics, and True Negroes, that argues that at the center of the shaping of this current unequal global order is the European imperial project and the co-construction of race in Africa. I plan, 1, to demonstrate the prescient observation of the late Haitian anthropologist Michel Roth-Triot that Haiti is the longest neocolonial experiment in the modern world. And 2, to argue that post-colonial states, particularly those on the African continent, have much to learn from Haiti's experience with Western imperialism. To do so, I focus on the period at the beginning of the 20th century when inter-European rivalry, a civil war called World War I, was settled through a new idiom of international cooperation and development that served to consolidate colonial control and to preserve Western hegemony into the present. Europeans settled their rivalry by deploying a cunning language of morality and international cooperation that claimed to do away with the excesses of the early phases of the post-1885 European colonization. And so they did that in order to have more peaceful cooperation amongst sovereigns. But in reality, it was a re-articulation of European white power because only European nations were considered capable of sovereignty. This notion of international cooperation instituted instead an international hierarchical racial order that justified renewed European rule as a civilizing trusteeship. This was the formation of the League of Nations and the mandate system of trusteeship established in 1920 at the end of the First World War. The various bureaucracies of the League of Nations became the basis for the structures of jurisprudence and relations of what we now understand to be the European and US-led global international order. The African continent was a key site for the consolidation of this new international order and its structures of maintenance and enforcement. The new international order was explicitly shaped by colonialist assumptions about social order, and more explicitly, racist assumptions about the readiness and ability of Africans to engage in self-rule. This international order continues to shape our world. But Haiti comes into play here too. At the formation of the League of Nations in 1919, Haiti had already attained its independence and had considered itself sovereign for more than a century. But its position within the League was contradictory. So I will focus simultaneously on how Africa was central to the mandate system of the League of Nations and Haiti's contradictory in the League as it sought to deploy its tenuous sovereignty on behalf of Africans under the mandate system while itself under foreign occupation. Ultimately, we see how Haiti's unique role in the modern world as both a quasi-sovereign nation and as a laboratory for US and Western imperialism serves as an example for African populations. To understanding the limits of modern models of Black sovereignty in a world structured by white supremacy. The scramble for European control of the African continent began in earnest in mid-1800s, as we all know, with Leopold II of Belgium, who took over vast swaths of land in the center of the continent, 11 times larger than Belgium, and controlled it as his personal kingdom, unironically called the Congo Free State. The gruesome decimation of human life and resources in the Congo increased Leopold's and ultimately Belgium's wealth tremendously, but also led to further European competition for access to the resources and territory of the continent. As a colonial power on the African continent, Germany's Second Reich committed the first genocide of the 20th century, the explicitly planned extermination of the Herero and Namakwa people in modern-day Namibia, who were resisting the plunder of their lands and resources. The European War, World War I, revived the scramble for Africa. Thus, at the beginning of World War I, a continent where Europe claimed but a tenth of the land in 1875 was in 25 more years practically absorbed. By the end of the war, as the victorious European countries took over German colonies as bounties of war, the British took Tanganyika and northern Cameroon. Togo was divided between France and Britain. France took the rest of Cameroon, while South Africans took Southwest Africa, this is Namibia. Belgians took Rwanda and Burundi. The Europeans together consolidated their control over the continent. The war officially ended in 1919 with the Treaty of Versailles at the Paris Peace Conference. The conference meeting, which occurred over months, were the coming together of the victorious nations and were primarily dominated by the four key governments, which remain key today. Britain, France, the United States, and Italy. It is significant that the question of the colonies loomed large for the Paris Peace Conference because by this time, European imperial discourse depended on the accepted belief that colonial possessions were an unconditional necessity as a source of raw materials, as markets, and as outlets for surplus populations, and as strategic bases. For the British in particular, as resistance and uncertainties mounted in its rich Indian colony, Africa arguably became more important to sustaining its imperial prestige. Thus, for all the West, but especially for France and Britain, empire was vital to post-war recovery and economic survival. But it is also Germany's demise, the stripping of its African colonies as spoils of war for the other Europeans and the establishment of a mandate system as justification that entrenched both European imperial control of Africa and Africa's position in the world at the bottom of a colonial hierarchy. European powers set themselves the task of drawing profit from the colonies, but this task, they realized, required transforming military occupation into civilian rule. Indeed, both the changing world politics and the terms of post-war peace settlement in 1919 provoked a shift in tactics. In a 1931 column by colonial anthropologist Margie Perham, she wrote that history will note that the European interest in Africa was immensely increased by the war and the establishment of the mandate system. The antecedent of the mandate system was the 1885 Berlin Act and the 1890 Brussels Conference, which partitioned the continent under the pretext of native welfare. The mandate system was created for governing territories in West Asia, now erroneously called the Middle East, Africa, and the Pacific. The League of Nations was created to oversee this mandate system. In theory, the system was set up to set up the ownership of colonies under international, that is European, tutelage, as opposed to the individual national ownership of civilized, that is European, nations. In practice, the mandate system of foreign tutelage and control hardly differed from classic colonialism. This is significant because the mandate system did not include territories within Europe, such as the Balkans and Eastern and Central Europe, that were under dispute during the World War. It was a different matter altogether for the conquered non-European colonies. These colonies were placed under the mandate system of Article 22 of the Covenant of the League of Nations. On September 23rd, 1921, at the Second Assembly Plenary Session of the League of Nations, Dantes Bellegarde, delegate for Haiti, addressed the members of the League of Nations by saying, do I point? Where do I point? Okay. A time will come when the League of Nations will have to deal with racial questions, when it will have to eradicate differences between races, which manifest themselves in unfair treatment inflicted on certain races and constitute a menace to the peace of the world. Bellegarde was referring to the League of Nations mandate system, which turned colonized territories into what it called mandates to be administered by so-called sovereign states. The mandates and the international order it sought to concretize was, he stressed, fundamentally based on racial difference, where only the rights sanctioned by presumably civilized Europeans were recognized. At the center of the covenant of the League of Nations was Article 22, which read, in part, to those colonies and territories which are inhabited by peoples not yet able to stand by themselves under the strenuous conditions of the modern world, there should be applied the principle that the well-being and development of such peoples form a sacred trust of civilization, and that the tutelage of such people should be entrusted to advanced nations. So let's review. Article 22 of the League of Nations Charter refers to the colonies and territories which were no longer under the sovereignty of states. Here, the reference was to Germany's former African colonies, which it lost because it lost the war. Sovereignty is always European. From the outset, Article 22 established that those under European colonial rule could not be sovereign. This meant that only Europeans, and nominally Japan, were considered states and allowed sovereignty. But more importantly is the claim that these colonies are, quote, inhabited by people not yet able to stand by themselves, end quote, and that these people needed the tutelage of those more civilized to function in this modern colonized world. Those in the colonies, in other words, were not ready for modern civilization. They needed protection and guidance from their mandatories, that is, European nations who were also their colonial masters. And in return, the European nations, in their kindness, took it as their duty to lead those poor souls until they could stand by themselves. I'm being sarcastic. Sorry. These were the ideological, political, and racial contexts for the establishment of the mandate system and the League of Nations. Guaranteed by the League of Nations, the mandate system was meant as a more effective way for Europeans to supposedly, in the words of one European, secure the liberty, material welfare, and opportunities for development of native inhabitants, end quote. But the universalist language deployed in the mandate's document revealed its European framers' hierarchical understanding of the world. As Cameroonian political theorist Siba Grovagi rightly points out, the mandate system depended on the dominant European view that, unlike their societies, non-European communities were tribalistic and lacked the kind of political cult structures that the West should recognize. The structure of the mandate system is particularly telling. The 1919 Peace Conference was established a three-tiered set of mandates mapped onto European beliefs about racial civilizational aptitude and classification of humankind, A, B, and C. We must first remember that the contested territories in Europe were not part of the mandate system. Mandate A, let's see. Do I have it? Okay. Mandate A were the people in the territories of the so-called Middle East who were considered closest to civilization and would need only a short time to be able to stand alone. Thus, Iraq and Palestine were put under the mandate of Britain, and Ottoman-ruled Syria and Lebanon were assigned to France. Class B mandates were for the so-called tribal peoples of tropical Africa, who would require an indefinite number, and this is in the writing, an indefinite number of years or decades of economic and political advancement under European tutelage. That's a quote. The territories in this class of mandates were former German colonies of Tanganyika, which was assigned to Britain, parts of Togoland and Cameroon, which were assigned to France, Rwanda and Burundi given to Belgium. Class C mandates were considered the most backward or primitive peoples within white settler populations that needed indefinite European control, highly convenient for the settler populations. The former German territories in the Pacific and Southwest Africa were redistributed to the European, while the white dominion. Southwest Africa was given to the settlers of South Africa. New Guinea was given to the settlers of Australia. Western Samoa was given to the settlers of New Zealand, and smaller islands were divided among Japan, New Zealand, and Australia. In his study of the mandate system as a new code for empire, African-American philosopher Alain Locke pointed out that the Class B mandates, that is, all of Africa, are really the crux of the mandate system. And he rightly argued that there would not be a mandate system without Africans because they represented, in the most fundamental way, the political and economic situation of imperialism with large natural resources, with large populations, seemingly of different types of civilization. So the establishment of the mandate system was actually a defensive move on the part of European war victors. As can be seen during the negotiated settlements to end the war, the key concern was access to the colonies with the losing powers. But while the mandates reflected entrenched racialist views about those affected, the categories of the mandates also reflected differing political realities in the colonies. in particular African resistance to foreign rule, and how to secure resources for war-torn Europe suffering financial distress. So the framers of the mandate system were strenuously trying to make a distinction between regular colonial rule and the trustee management under the mandate system. So did the emerging liberalism that sought to rebrand imperial control with the language of internationalism and global governance. These two aspects, shifts in racial articulation to liberal as opposed to conservative and brute racism, and the rebranding of imperialism were necessarily connected. Credited to its architect, Jan Smuts, also the architect of the South African apartheid, a racist who still has a street named after him in Johannesburg, the League of Nations was conceptualized and presented as a counter to empire and colonial domination. It is significant that the emergence of the League of Nations and the mandate system was meant to be the progressive departure from the evils of empire. For the most part, the League of Nations presented itself as a post-imperial project. Through the League, the Europeans created a new system where they convinced themselves that their new imperialism, masquerading as internationalism and consecrated by the mandate system, was liberal and democratic and not imperial. The League, therefore, laid the basis for post-war internationalism that seemed to also diminish the nation beneath the rule of community of nations. It was only the civilized people, the Europeans in Europe, that could be given recognition of nationhood and sovereignty. The rest of the world was an uncivilized organic whole that could not be considered part of the international community. The League would later give way to the formation of the United Nations system, and the mandate system was renamed the United Nations Trust Territories. What the standards for the formulation of the League of Nations reveal, especially in the covenant, Article 22, is that Europeans could both argue that self-determination was one of the fundamental principles upon which the League was grounded, while denying that self-determination to most of the world, presumably because of their character as not fully people. In this sense, the League of Nations and its mandate system was meant the renewed consolidation and assertion of white supremacy, and specifically what Jan Smuts called white racial unity. The institutionalization of a racial double standard to a global framework that reflected differential treatment of races also meant a form of inter-European solidarity in a world that, even if it could not fully eliminate inter-Western, inter-European conflict, this world helped foster a climate in which unity for Europeans could be forged in relation to matters that affected people deemed racially distinct to themselves, racially distinct and inferior to themselves. Nevertheless, the mandate system shaped a new world order. It shaped future global politics, including the founding of the United Nations, through the same terms as the League, and the consequent global order of the white West and the rest of us. In Haitian Representative Bellegarde's speech to the League of Nations Assembly, he was pointing to precisely the racist nature of the League, and many, especially other Black diaspora intellectuals, participants of the Pan-African conferences, which actually occurred at the same time as the Paris Peace Conference, saw Bellegarde's advocacy of Africa as heroic. W.E.B. Du Bois even referred to Bellegarde as the international spokesman of Black folk. Prestige accompanied the fact that Black representation in the international arena was assumed by Haiti. Indeed, Haiti, as well as Ethiopia and minimally Liberia, were seen by the leaders of the Black diaspora as miraculous, since they were considered the only independent states governed by people of African descent, even as they existed at the edges of the European created and led international order. Out of the three, however, Haiti was the subject of the most fascination because of the boldness of its representatives and its unique position in the European imagination and politics. Most fascinating for the Black world was that Haiti joined the League of Nations as a founding member in 1919. As such, and based on the covenant of the League of Nations, the fact that the European nations allowed Haiti to become a member meant the country's public recognition as a fully sovereign nation, a recognition that its leader had tirelessly sought since 1804, after winning the War of Independence against Napoleon Bonaparte. But here was the key contradiction. At the same time as its sovereign independence was being internationally recognized, Haiti was arguably less independent than it had been in 200 years. Haiti was under a brutal US military occupation, which began July 1915 with the July 1915 invasion of the US Marines. During that 19-year occupation, in addition to the violence meted out to those who resisted the occupation, the US forced the dissolution of the Haitian National Assembly, rewrote Haiti's constitution that now allowed foreign land ownership, put in charge governments to sign treaties, including the Treaty of Occupation, stole and transferred $50 million worth of gold, of Haiti's gold, to the Citibank of New York, and took over all of Haiti's customs revenue and most of the country's finances, as well as its security. If Haiti was sovereign and a full member of the League of Nations, under what pretext was the US able to justify this occupation? And how could this be missed by members of the League of Nations Permanent Council? Well, the military aspect of US invasion and occupation of Haiti in 1915 was justified presumably legally binding treaties. In fact, as soon as the US began the occupation of Haiti in 1915, it worked to install a Haitian puppet president who signed a US draft of treaty occupation titled, and this is an important title, "The Treaty Between Haiti and the United States Regarding the Finances, Economic Development, and Tranquility of Haiti," end quote. That's the title. The treaty was signed in September 1915, soon after the invasion and the beginning of the occupation, and 5 years before Haiti became a founding member of the League of Nations and Bellegarde, its representative on the League's board. But what must be said was that Haiti and its representatives had to receive permission from the US occupiers to join and attend the League of Nations. At the time of its formation, the US, under President Woodrow Wilson, was hesitant about joining the League of Nations, as its leaders felt that the US did not want to become second fiddle to Europeans under this new international community of nations. Most ironically was the fact that Wilson agreed that the League's claim to self-determination for nations, a fact as some Haitian leaders, most ironically was the fact that Wilson agreed that the League's claim of self-determination for nations, a fact as some Haitian leaders tried to point, that demonstrated the hypocrisy of the US occupation in 1915. Now, there is, of course, much to be said here, especially about the fact that the US never joined the League of Nations, despite chairing the committee that drafted its originary covenant and participated in many League projects. But I want to quickly focus on how Haiti can be considered sovereign and allowed membership in the League of Nations despite being under foreign military, political, and economic occupation. What is remarkable is that the issue of Haiti being under occupation was not officially allowed to be brought up as a discussion point at the League. The foreign military intervention and occupation of Haiti by the US was not coded as a dysfunction of the League or considered a spectacular violation of the League's charter, because Haiti was under occupation when it joined the League. Its joining the League was contradictorily understood as compatible with the smooth functioning of the international legal order. Moreover, the US, using its Monroe Doctrine as one of the justifications for occupying Haiti and other countries in the region, also presented their occupation almost in the terms of trusteeship. As an aside, I hope you will notice the same language as trusteeship used by the Canadian government in 2003. The US, in effect, presented itself as an elder brother whose role was to help the Haitian state fulfill its international obligations until it was able to rule itself. So far from denying Haitian sovereignty, US leadership argued that the occupation was there to help and safeguard Haiti. Indeed, the acceptance of these justifications by the White West also depended on the racialization of Haiti and the entire African continent in general as intrinsically non-sovereign. The racial delegitimation of Haiti had been the mainstay of European and US representatives since its independence. In this, especially in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, there was always the trope of Haiti reverting back to its original state of African savagery, as they called it. Thus, Robert Lansing, U.S. Secretary of State from 1915 to 1920, and a chief architect of U.S. policy in Haiti, state that, quote, the experience of Liberia and Haiti show that the African race are devoid of any capacity for political organization and lack genius for government. Unquestionably, there is in them an inherent tendency to revert to savagery and to cast aside the shackles of civilization, which are irksome to their physical nature. In 1930, 10 years after his pleas to the League of Nations Permanent Council to address the racism inherent in the mandate system, Dantes Bellegarde finally had a chance to speak on the dire situation in Haiti, criticizing not only the racist U.S. occupation of Haiti, but also U.S. foreign policy towards the region of Latin America and the Caribbean. In response, the U.S. forced the puppet government, Haitian government to swiftly recall Bellegarde from his diplomatic position in Europe. The occupation was never brought up again at the League of Nations, but it must also be known that members of the League did not follow up on Bellegarde's charges against the U.S. occupation of Haiti. By not doing so, they further consolidated the two-tiered international order based on racial difference, a two-tiered racist international order that continues to exist today. So there are a number of points that I would like to make from this discussion as I begin to conclude. First, it is clear that the ideology of race and the practices of white supremacy are at the center of the European so-called international order, where Haitian sovereignty was made to be not so different from the African trusteeship set up by the mandate system. The point to be made here is that at the beginning of the establishment of the current European created and led international world order, Haitian sovereignty was made distinct to coexist with US and Western economic and political control. Second, Haiti's contradictory position as quasi-sovereign at the beginning of the 20th century prefigures the inevitable position of post-colonial African states where, as Grover-Guy argues, the transfer of political power did not mean self-determination. Indeed, the institutional and cultural context of Western hegemony in the global order and African marginalization within it remain largely intact today. Finally, and to me, the most crucial are the palpable parallels between the way that foreign occupation functioned and Haiti's nominal sovereignties were and are minimized in 1915 and in 2004, where today there is an ongoing occupation under the United Nations mandate that is both denied as occupation, and the occupation of Haiti under UN and Western tutelage is believed to be compatible with a type of sovereignty. The most radical paradox of this new occupation, an occupation precipitated by a coup and legitimized through the UN Security Council supposedly representing the international community, is that the coup, its preparations, and the occupation has been what legal scholar China Melville calls an astonishing successful exercise in multilateral cooperation, what he calls multilateralism as terror. When the West could bring together a rainbow nation of non-white neo-colonial nations to deny sovereignty to a non-white sister nation. It is important to recognize the significance of Haiti for understanding both the history and struggle for decolonization and Black self-determination, and the long Western counter-revolution against global Black emancipation and freedom. We should all learn from the experiences of Haiti in the context of a hegemonic Western system of global governance to understand the workings of neocolonialism in the current moment and the real challenges to Black emancipation and sovereignty. The first step is to remember Haiti's history as the site of one of the longest struggles in the world for Black liberation and anti-colonial independence. This explains the US empire's constant reactionary onslaught against the people of Haiti, punishing their repeated attempts at upholding their sovereignty with decades of instability designed to secure and expand US hegemony. For 2 centuries, imperial counterinsurgency against Haiti has aimed to terminate the most ambitious revolutionary experiment in the modern world. The tactics deployed to attack Haitian sovereignty have been consistent. So the second step is to work against Haitian and African singularity and to make the necessary connections that challenge the global hierarchical relations of power and related historical and contemporary dominance of the white West. Thank you.
Thank you much, Professor Pierre. Can we give her another round of applause? I know this has been, even as it's been painful, I know that it's been very edifying for all of us in the room. People need to exhale. We know little bits of this story. People know larger and smaller bits, but this has been really, I know people have a lot to say and maybe think. I'm going to ask that we take maybe 3 questions/comments and allow Professor to respond. So do I see? Thank you, sir. 1. Anyone else? Back of the room. 2. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out on your name right now. And 3. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Mahama from the School of Pharmacy. So if I seem to be lost, you should understand where I'm coming from. By listening to you, I get very much confused about Haiti. Everything seems to be going wrong, from nature, the earthquakes, to what other people have done. But you seem to have focused so much on the role of the US. But the little I know, I think France should have been mentioned more. I haven't heard enough of that. And France, I'm told, or as I see, is trying to help now to ensure you have a good police and all that. How could such a person be your friend? And also, the role of Kenya. I don't understand why the people of Haiti are against them, because at the time that Kenya went in, forget about the fact that people feel they are being used, but there was no government there, which you deny. Is it true or not? There was no government. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, how you doing? Thank you for coming today. It was an amazing presentation. My name is Devon Thomas. I'm a first-year MA student studying African Studies and International Economics. I think Haiti is not spoken of enough. You want me to stand up? How you doing? I'll stand. So how do we remedy this? There seems to be like, it's multidimensional. The institutions like the League of Nations that are now kind of morphed into the United Nations are still dominated by those same US, Italy, France, English power structures. So I learned about the Kenya agency in this new incursion, but it seems like there's always another thing. And Haiti, whether we know it or not, is the head. It's the first nation other than Ethiopia and parts of Liberia, but it's the head of liberation in the African American and African diaspora community. So how do we remedy this? Because it seems like there's always something deeper, and Haiti isn't seen as the head, even though it should be. Thank you.
So the question is, how do we remedy? Oh, yes.
Thank you for the very insightful presentation. My question is about the role of the various factions in Haiti My name is Peter Bimbil. I'm a PhD candidate of the Institute of African Studies. And thank you again for the presentation. My question is about the fashions in Haiti, this gang activities. Recently, there's news about even one of the gangs killing people they supposedly assume to be voodoo practitioners or witches and going on rampage, killing them. My question is about whether these fashions have been in a way instrumentalized in the processes of erosion or prevention of sovereignty in Haiti, and whether there is this kind of linkages in terms of what some of the fashions and violent extremist groups on the continent are also sometimes weaponized by Western powers. Do you see a kind of play like that going on in Haiti? Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. I always get, when it comes to Haiti, I get the same questions. So it's very, so I anticipated them. So the first one is interesting in the sense that the point of this talk was to actually make connections to thinking about the African post-colony and Haiti, which is the longest neo-colonial experiment in the world, 220 years of independence, and to talk about bridges of that and to talk about the parallels that we see now in 1915. So I did focus on the League of Nations, the international world, or the international global governance, which emerges out of the League of Nations and then continues on through the United Nations and then consolidates with US as the supreme power after World War II. So my focus on, so this talk is about that. I hope that was clear. There are plenty of ways I could have talked. There are plenty of things I could have talked about. I could have talked about France and the independence ransom that it stole from Haiti, that it took more than 100 years to pay back. That's worth more than $100 billion. That's money that used to enrich France, built the Eiffel Tower, and so on. The US is the major hegemon that emerges after 1945, and the US has been at the head of the imperial machinations happening in Haiti right now. The other thing is France. I started by saying the coup d'etat was effected by France, Canada, and the US. In fact, the UN just released this, if you go into the UN records, Dominique Villepin, in February 25th, 4 days before the coup, had already had a meeting with the UN Security Council and said, prepare for control of Haiti. That's in the public record. He wrote a letter. The point is to show there's a hierarchy in the world in global governance where some nations are deemed unable to be sovereign. And it's all this, they're non-European nations. We can see that with what's happening in Gaza, for example, right? But we have to actually understand the root of the problem, right? So we think about the mandate system that emerges that basically is about creating international law while there's colonialism. It's about allowing the participation of a supposedly sovereign country while it is under occupation. And I just thought the parallels were extremely uncanny, right? The other thing is people always say, well, what's wrong with having Kenyans come in? The last time Haiti had thousands of foreign soldiers, as I said, in Haiti, it was a bloodbath for the local people. But what's important about the point I made about Kenya is the fact that the Kenyan participation was solicited by the US. Kenyans were paid $600 million to send what are effectively mercenaries. And it's important to understand that because even Kenya had never had any relations with Haiti. So even after the earthquake in 2010, we had no relationship with Haiti. I think the only African country that actually has had consistent relationship with Haiti is Senegal, right? Kenya had not. And the fact that it did it on behalf of the US is the key point here. It did not did it on its own. In fact, the Kenyan mission that went there to check out things was brought in by the US Marines, housed in the U.S. Embassy and taken around Haiti by U.S. soldiers, right? And their meetings was with the core group, not with the Haitian so-called government. But my point exactly is there is the construction of the failed state because of the consistent invasion, occupation. When you can remove a sitting president, when the Marines can land at a president's house, tell him to grab his bag and his family, drive him to the airport, put him in a car, on a plane, fly him to Africa because they did not want him in the Western Hemisphere because he was too popular. That is not sovereignty. And that's a lot of power for the US to have. And then you can continue on, change election results. In 2010, Hillary Clinton flew to Haiti, changed the election results, and put in the president they wanted. And this is WikiLeaks papers. These are all public information. I get my information publicly, right? And so to say Haiti has no government, of course we need Kenyans, is to dismiss the key point here, is that continued intervention, 200 years of a counter-revolution because these people dared to be free. And that's what Haiti is suffering. And the point is that you can have sovereignty, you can claim sovereignty, and those who run the world can run roughshod over your sovereignty, but still tell you you're sovereign. And that's the message I wanted to say in terms of understanding Haiti's experience at the longest neocolonial experiment, and to see that what's going on the African continent in the post-colonial moment actually has a lot of, you can see linkages of what's going on. I wanted to, how do we remedy that? I always say, all the conversation around how do we remedy this world as it stands? And all this conversation around decolonization. To decolonize the world, we must change the world as we know it, which means we must destroy the entire set of global structures that have been set up to uphold European power and privilege since 1945, which means all these structures are not meant for us, which is why you can have a vote against a genocide and one country can stop the rest of the will of the rest of the world, right? And so that means that these structures, the IMF, the World Bank, the UN, the WTO, all of those things actually need to be dismantled, and something new that's much more democratic and representative of the world need to be put in place. That is the only decolonization we can have. That's the only remedy. But in order to do that, you have to actually know what the problem is. Like, you can't go to the doctor and not have a diagnosis and be asked to get medicine. Diagnoses need to be made. And I think the right diagnosis actually needs to be made, or else we're not gonna get better. Now, the so-called gang violence in Haiti is very interesting to me, in that one of the things that we've seen since Libya, in particular, since the destruction of Libya by NATO, is how the West controls the information sphere around the globe. And so, of course, I'm in Ghana, and the only thing that's on the TV is CNN, BBC, Voice of America, which is a CIA-funded thing, right? Maybe Al Jazeera here and there, but so we get our information from those who construct the narratives. That's why I always talk about manufacturing consent. Every time there's a UN meeting about Haiti, the US wanting an intervention, the news about Haiti just goes up. You would think, for example, that Haiti is in a major civil war. And as I said from the beginning, this is in the capital city. Haiti is a country of 13 million people. Only 2 million in the capital city, and only parts of the capital city are under this. And I'll get to that in a minute. So, but I want to talk about manufacturing consent, because at the same time that we have Mexican cartels taking over entire towns, we have Jamaica has been under a state of emergency for the past 3 years because of gang violence. We have Ecuador under major gang violence, but no one's calling for foreign military intervention with that. We have a genocide going on in Gaza. No one is calling for military intervention to stop it. So what is it about gang violence? The so-called gang violence is the idea is to make it seem like this is a global situation when there are more gangs in Chicago than there are in Haiti. So that's the first. The second thing I want to say is One of the things about armed groups in Haiti is that they've been funded by the oligarch who are non-Black. The oligarchy is from the Levantine population. We have them here, right? It's the rich people in Haiti are the Lebanese, the white people, the French, the Israelis. The richest person in Haiti is Gilbert Bijou, who's an Israeli, who's also the Israeli consulate in Haiti, who has links to Mossad that protects his businesses and people. These are the people that have been funding paramilitary groups since they were young. I mean, since, for years, when they wanted to go against their other business partners. When you have an impoverished population, you can give guns to a few people to go shoot up the other person's business. That's how it began. And if you watch what Canada and the US has done, they actually brought sanctions against 4 of the 5 elite groups in Haiti, as well as the former president, for arming young people and wreaking havoc. So the discussion around gangs came when Haitians were protesting. And that's one of the things. They'd been protesting from 2016, protesting US presence, protesting against IMF removal of subsidies, which raised prices by 40% overnight. And the installed prime minister that the US put in place kept saying it's the gangs. And so they used that gang violence. And now over the past 2 years, as the US wants to manufacture consent because it needs a military base in Haiti as it prepares to go to war with China, it needs to actually have a formal intervention there to install, to keep that base permanent. And this is the crux of the matter. So the poor people are suffering under this. And we're taking CNN to be like, the problem in Haiti is these young people who don't even have chalewate, but can have a $2,000 machine gun walking around the neighborhoods and being sent arms and ammunition coming from the Dominican Republic as well as the US. Most of the guns and ammunition come through the US, through the ports that are owned by the 5 families that run Haiti. Each port is privately owned. So that's where the guns are coming from. And this is how you manufacture consent.
Thank you. Hold on, I'm going to take
May I say
some
something,
questions
sir?
online, and then I'll come back into the room. I don't know will they be able to, will we hear them? Okay. So the first person that I will take is Kwame Nimo. Then the second is, the name is not completely, Kwame, please hold on a second. The second name is not completely on screen, but it's Akpo, and then it's ... And then I will, I was going to read the third question, which I'm not sure, well, you've kind of alluded to it, so I will read it all the same. People want like instant solutions, so I will ask the questions. Sairam asks, what effective strategies can be put in place for these imperialist forces to leave us alone? And let me read the third one, the fourth one before I come to you, Kwame. It reads, this is from Kofi Asante. He says, thank you for your timely and much needed lecture showing how the practices of European colonialism continue to this day. In the weeks before the elections in Ghana, the UK and US warned that any Ghanaian politician, quote unquote, behaving badly, actual quote, and undermining Ghana's democracy will be denied visas. Shockingly, the media and some, quote unquote, public intellectuals in Ghana celebrated this blatantly racist declaration. Thanks for pointing out the parallels between what the US is doing to Haiti and what the West is equally doing across the African continent. And I will say thank you for reminding us to be aware of the tropes. You started your lecture by flagging to us these tropes and narratives and how we should be aware of them. Okay, so Kwame, over to you. Kwame, you're muted. Kwame,
Thank
Nimo,
you, Professor
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I have unmuted now. So thank
Showing
you,
unmuted here.
Professor Adomako and
that's me.
Professor Jemima.
We cannot hear Kwame.
My name is Kwame
Otherwise,
Nimo,
I will ask if you
I
can
am based
type your
in
question into
Miami.
the chat, then I can read it on your behalf. tech folks,
Okay.
are we okay?
Can you hear me
for
now? Because
sound?
I'm unmuted.
I can hear Kwame.
Okay, Kwame, please type in the
Perhaps
chat,
the problem is on that side.
and then I will
Yes.
read it on your behalf. And I'm going to get that the
Okay.
second questioner will have the same challenge. So if you can both type your questions into the chat, and then I will read them out. And so as to save time, I'm going to bring it back to our audience here so we can. Yes, boss.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Lloyd Amoa, University of Ghana. I want to give a comment and then a question. I think the point was made by the very first questioner about knowledge about Haiti and all of that. Some of us were exposed to Haiti almost by happenstance. I was reading the works of Louis Gordon, and that was when the issue of Haiti and African liberation and all of that, essentially came to me. And that was when I had long finished my PhD and all of that. So it's a question of the curriculum in many ways that would allow these kinds of connections to be made so that we begin to understand the complications of what Haiti is going through and the parallels with our own situation in Africa. But my question to you is, the work of somebody like, the guy who wrote the racial contract, Charles Mills, what do you think about some of the claims he makes in there about this global racial contract? And within that framework, the idea that really, when it comes to Africa and the African diaspora, there are no citizens, but sub-persons. So if you have sub-persons, you can't even begin to think of sovereignty. So I want to have a sense of what you think about Charles Mills's framework within the context of your own analysis. And I'd like to add that I have two plants in my home. One is called Toussaint Louverture, and the other is the other guy. Thank you. Desaline. Just so I'll remember them always.
There's a hand back there in a hat. I can't see. Okay.
Hi, I have to. Hi, I'm Fauzi. I'm a PhD candidate. Thank you so much for reminding us of the need to unlearn all the things that we have imbued from mainstream media and even some intellectual discourses. My question is in relation to unlearning. I guess for me, I understand Haiti's position following the revolution as a powerful Black sovereign nation. But now I'm kind of lost as to Haiti's position within the geopolitical discourse now. What makes Haiti so lucrative, in quote, to these Western forces? All over, we're seeing that whether it's the whites, West, East, every movement is calculated and there is some returns, whether it's political or economic. And I guess for Haiti, we haven't even had the chance to observe Haiti's identity in order to determine where it stands in this geopolitical world order. So I'm wondering what the stakes are for the US and these other nations if Haiti is ever free. Thank you.
I'll take right in front here and then. So can I have the mic in front and then we'll come back in the next round so that Professor Pierre is not inundated and overwhelmed with questions.
Thank you very much for a great presentation. My name is Bright Gemfi, and I'm assistant professor at UC San Diego. So for me, I've been thinking about Haiti with the recent comments that Trump made, right? That they're stealing our cats, they're eating our dogs, all these things that were happening. So you have the Republicans on one hand, and then you have the Democrats. And then you have the Democrats on the other hand, who are leading these neoliberal invasion conquest. But on the other side, they're telling us that they're for freedom. But then we see what the Biden administration is doing. We see what Clinton did. both Hillary Clinton as well as Bill Clinton. Like, so how then do we think through that, quote unquote, freedom for Black people and getting the Black Americans to also understand fully what is happening, and not necessarily this liberal project that the Democrats are standing for, quote unquote, emancipation and freedom?
The sound is now working, but we'll do that in the next round so that Professor can respond a lot of questions. Bright, as I was listening to you, I'm reminded of a song by Phil Ox. I don't know if that's how his name is pronounced. I think it's called Love Me, I'm a Liberal. And it's a very sardonic song. Anyway, over to you.
Thank you. I wanted to, I guess the first question was about what strategies to be put in place for the imperial people to leave us alone. You know, we need to destroy imperialism. I mean, like, that's the best. But one of the key things to do that is to actually understand the connections of these histories. I don't think people don't know Haiti's history. And people who do know history don't know anything past this revolution, but also don't realize that the West will not give up its power so easily. Haiti was beset by a counter-revolution from the very beginning. And we have to see what's going on as a long counter-revolution. From the fact that in 1825, after Napoleon was defeated, and Haitian enslaved Africans had to basically, the scorched earth policy, completely burn that part of the island down to get rid of the French, the British, the Spanish, everyone who was trying to get part of this land. The French come back with an armada in 1825 and threaten to invade Haiti and re-enslave the Africans if they don't pay this ransom, which was 150 million francs. At the same time, the French sold the Louisiana territory to the US for only 9 million francs. That doubled the size of the US. So what you have is Haiti having to pay this indemnity, which 85% of its budget was going to pay off this loan for 115 years, which set back. So as France was using this money to build itself, you know, Paris and all that mess, Haiti had to pay that. So we have to actually understand counter-revolution for what it is. We also have to understand counter-revolution on the African continent. I don't understand why just because we have elections, we think we're free. We have to understand how many leaders were assassinated by the French, by the Americans, by the Belgians, by the British. Radical African leaders, either deposed or assassinated. So that what we're left with are leaders that are amenable to what needs to be done, which goes to the elections, right? The fact that the U.S. can use its sanctions, and to basically lecture Africans, because that's what everybody does. Sarkozy came in and said, Africans had not made it to modern history yet. Remember that speech in 2008, right? So there's and the entire Western development apparatus is based on the idea that Africans lack. There's a great African lack. So this idea of capacity building that people love to use means that you don't have capacity in a number of ways. I know people don't want to read it that way, but this leads me to your question, two questions, like the elections. The US can determine which leaders it wants and which leader it doesn't. Look what it did in Venezuela. It said it's gonna acknowledge the other guy that didn't win. And we take that. This is the US where Donald Trump lost a popular vote back the last elections and still was made president. The US does not have a democracy. So who are these people? 500 years of European power through genocide, dispossession. And we think these people can tell us what democracy is. I think we need to actually understand our linked histories. Because if we don't do that, if we don't understand that the way the world is structured to keep us thinking that the problem is within us, that corruption is something that's like in the blood of Africans, as opposed to the fact that Ouattara brought a suitcase of money to Chirac for the elections, or that could, and that requires a strong government, that requires strong leadership, but that can't happen when the US can warn you before an election that you better act well, or else, we're going to punish you. So that's that. I think so. I think Haiti's position. So the question about Haiti's position in geopolitical discourse. Why Haiti? Well, first, the Europeans, the French in particular, have never forgiven Haiti for that revolution. Let's be real. This was the first and only successful slave revolt. Napoleon was the most powerful, had the most powerful army in the world. And at that moment, if only for a short time, Haiti dismantled global white supremacy, dismantled the power of the Europeans at the height of the enslavement in the region. That cost them so much. That cost them so much, not only in terms of economic, but in terms of like feelings of prestige and pride, and challenging this idea of white superiority. So there's that. There's the representation, and then there's also over time, in addition to the, there's 200 years of representation of Haitians as cannibals and savages. So for example, I was doing this research, there's 1921 New York Times headline during the occupation that says, Haitians eat a US Marine. You can look that up. So these headlines about Haitians being savages, cannibals, you see them keep coming, right? They keep coming. They were in the news last spring, gangs eating people and so on, right? And so this is a 200 years construction of these people as always already ready to revert back to African savagery. And this is where Africa is implicated, because the heart of savagery to the West is still Africa. I don't know, y'all might not want to believe it, but that is it. That's why I wanted to put that quote up there for us to see. Why the US needs Haiti? Because the US has always wanted a military base in Haiti so it can control the region, especially as you have leftist government, particularly Cuba, which had been under a 62-year blockade. There's Cuba, there's Venezuela, and there's Nicaragua, leftist governments that the US want to control. And because to have leftist governments mean to not have access to around. So the US wanted this base from the 1800s. The Haitian governments have refused all these years, which is why the US actually built Guantanamo Bay, the base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. So if you look at the map, Guantanamo Bay is right above Haiti, the area where the US has been wanting a military base for 200 years, right? The Haiti is in the Trade Winds Passage, where you can actually get through. It's the easiest place from the US eastern side, where the military bases are, the Navy. You can get around, get through the Panama Canal to get to Asia. So you need that base there. You need a presence there for that. Haiti has resources, gold and oil, that Canada, for example, is being sued for, getting fake licenses to mine for gold in Haiti. Haiti also has iridium and cobalt, the necessary. But the most important thing for Haiti is the population, where the people still own their land, unlike places like Jamaica, where people don't own their land. I don't know if you saw the story where Jamaicans don't even have access to their beaches because they're taken over by resorts around the entire island. So what they want to do is remove people from the land, turn them into cheap labor, because they need the factories. Once they lose access to Chinese cheap labor, they need the factories which are closer for that. The other thing is that, I lost my train of thought. Land. Huh? What did they? So they want that. They've been wanting. The thing about the U.S. policy has changed in the sense that it does not want to put its boots on the ground, as you can see. So it wants proxies, which is why we have Kenyans, right? And so it wants the UN peacekeeping mission because it's a cheap. And WikiLeaks papers revealed the U.S. Ambassador Janet Sanderson saying, you can just Google U.S. Ambassador WikiLeaks Janet Sanderson, where she says, the peacekeeping mission minister was a foreign policy bonanza for the U.S. because the UN paid for the troops to get U.S. foreign policy objectives in the region. So Haiti becomes this perfect place for all these reasons and then some. And I think we need to actually be aware of that, but also be aware of how, because I don't want to exceptionalize Haiti, because the other part is to show that what's happening in Haiti is happening other places. but we are the we are the laboratory for these things to come, like using these proxies. So the Minister mission had military officials from Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, Nepal. I mean, all over the world. And you basically have a multinational occupation force on behalf of the US. And I wanted to just, Trump's comments, Trump to me, I don't pay attention to, because he says things to be provocative. But what's interesting about Trump's comments about Haitians eating dog was the fact that everybody jumped on that, not the fact of the 30 years before of US foreign policy, where you have Bill Clinton destroying Haiti's rice production so that his farmers in Arkansas, where he was governor, can get free a place to dump their cheap rice, right? Such that Obama was one of the biggest deportees of Haitian asylum seekers, that Biden deported more people than Trump and Obama combined in the 4 years he's been in office. That even while they're saying that there are gangs and violence in Haiti, there's a deportation plane of Haitians every other day flying into Haiti. You can look that up. So part of that is like, I think US policy in Haiti is bipartisan. And the view about Haiti remains the same, regardless of whether or not it's a Black person in power or a woman in power when it comes to Haiti.
Okay, so we are going to go online, but I'm going to use my discretion as the chair. There's a question from UGRC about how colonial power has contributed to the unfinished nature of Black sovereignty. And I believe that's what the entire lecture has been about. So I don't know if this person came in late and did not hear it. And then Kwame, I'm going to give you the mic in a second. Your question about the deployment of African troops to Haiti, if it would be better under the AU, I don't know if Professor wants to respond to that, because I think her point is not about the who, but about the entire cosmology, if you like, of that. But exactly. But Kwame does have a question about the Trump presidency, so I will let him ask that. And then I don't know whether Akpome still wants to ask his question, and then Seriam also. Seriam, I'm going to ask you also, because your question also has been answered. How have the successive imperialist forces succeeded in continuing the cycle of imperialism? That has also been the entire lecture. So Kwame, please ask your question, and then Akpome, you may. So limit your question, Kwame, to the second part, because the first part has been attended to in the lecture.
Okay. Very much, Professor Adomako, Professor Jemima, for the wonderful presentation. So my name is Kwame, a PhD candidate based in Haiti is very important to me. I have lots of Haitian friends. I mean, just yesterday I was in Little Haiti, and we always have stimulating conversations about Haiti. So real quick, I just want to know, I mean, from your point of view, if you think the Trump's presidency will be maybe slightly better for Haiti, considering the fact that Trump is more less interventionist than the Democrats. Do you think Trump's presidency would be a little better for the Haitians? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kwame. Akpome, your question.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. And I want to really appreciate Professor Pierre for what I impressed by how you use Haiti. And I don't know, I don't want to sound judgmental, but I think the colleagues seem to have been to miss the part when you talk about Black sovereignty, that Haiti is just an example of Western racist supremacist assault, historical assaults on Black sovereignty and Black humanity. I'm impressed by how you dig up that article in the League of Nations, from the League of Nations document, which resonated with in the Berlin's communique, Article 6, that talks about the conditions of Black people. I'm doing some work now, how the demonization of the Black subject is being carried on at present in regard to discourses of corruption. And I'm very, very kind of part fascinated, kind of part disillusioned by the ways in which Africans themselves participate in this dehumanization, without understanding that all this construction of the Black subject is to render the Black subject as someone who cannot govern themselves, and people who need intervention, which is the very exploitative interventions that we have been having all these years. So I would be happy to hear your comment on the ways in which the current description of Black African governments as corrupt, as incapable of self-governance, ties into this project of dehumanizing and denying Black people their sovereignty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Dennis wanted to ask a question. In fact, Dennis has high praise for you, Chika. This is an excellent lecture. Congrats to you for bringing Professor Pierre. Please convey my respect and admiration to her. Says he doesn't know you personally, but please feel free to ask your question, Dennis, if you're still there.
Hello, could you hear?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for such an excellent lecture, Professor Pierre. I'm from Guyana in the Caribbean, and so Haiti is very close to us and very dear to us. And but one of the things I've noticed that you've done is to put the Haiti conflict or the situation in Haiti in a broader global context of what we can do in order to counteract this new period that we're in which Haiti can actually become free. I think that one of the things that I would say is that Haiti, as well as the Caribbean, as well as Africa, we can actually move towards the final stage to defeat the colonial order. And Nkrumah told us about the neo-colonials. We want political power, but we still don't have economic power. But I think we were at a stage where we could actually win economic power. And one of the movements that is on now in that direction is the BRICS. Because the BRICS, I think, has the potential to bring about this sort of change that you're referring to and that we need. But the problem is that we've had these movements before. We've had the non-aligned movement. We've had the New International Economic Order, the NIEO. And these are all attempts to really bring about the economic freedom of the region, of the Caribbean and of the quote-unquote developing third world countries. But how it was defeated. And I'm wondering whether or not the movement, BRICS movement, which promises so much to bring about economic freedom, which we crave after, whether that too will be defeated, seeing what happened in Syria recently here. But more specifically to the Caribbean, I think that CARICOM, the Caribbean community, has really failed Haiti, because the Caribbean community is basically like just a tool of US imperialism when it comes to Haiti and comes to political issues. Any comments on that?
I'm giving the mic to you. I just want to read Efia Zacchaeus' comment. She says, truth, Imperial France has never forgotten. Revenge is their goal, not only with Haiti, but now African countries kicking them out.
Thank you. These are a lot of great questions. The AU is interesting because the Haiti wanted actually membership in the AU, and AU said no. So that was a while ago, just to remember. But the other thing is, the point is not having someone else lead the intervention. The point is questioning the narrative about the need for foreign military intervention. problem that could be solved with the US stopping the shipment of guns from Haiti and ammunition, and the elite being shielded from prosecution. So the point is, we don't want intervention. Haitian people don't want foreigners on their land. One of the things remember I told you I lost my train of thought? When the president of the US rewrote Haiti's constitution in 1920 under the first occupation, by the way, they're trying to rewrite our constitution again. In 1805, when Haiti became independent, its 1805 constitution by Jean-Jacques Dessalines had a clause in there that said, no white man can come back to this land as owner. That was enshrined in the Constitution. That was the clause that the US removed in 1920 from our Constitution. And so I just think that's, when we're talking about global white supremacy, when we're talking about Charles Mills, when we're talking about what it is that the US can get away with, this is it. So that it opened up the space for foreigners to own land in Haiti. Before that was not possible. And this was an important clause, particularly because these were enslaved Africans who were on plantations owned by whites. And so they're like, no one should, they link land ownership to, these foreign whites, and they did not want to give them that. And so, but the US changed that. And now the US is changing it so that more people, land is owned by the state collectively and passed out to people. So now they're trying to change the Constitution to allow foreigners to own more than 2 plots of land in order to open it up. So that's what's happening. Back to the questions. Trump presidency, I don't know, people really hold out a lot for Trump. I don't understand what's going on. The truth is, Trump is going to not be any better than any other president, primarily because the trauma that US imperialism is unleashing on Haitians means that a refugee problem, right? And they're going to have to find a way to deal with, that's what the Republicans run on. Like, we have our borders, except that, the US allowed in 500,000 Ukrainians the past 2 years, but not a lot of people. So just remember, so even like asylum policies are very much racialized when it comes to the world. Akpome, thank you so much for that, about the narrative of corruption. I do have an article on that, actually, focusing on Ghana, and it's called The Racial Vernaculars of Development. And it's about the racist language of development when it comes to Africa. And the fact that Africans have bought into this notion that we are uniquely corrupt. And then there's some key terms: capacity building, corruption, good governance. Even though, for example, we have France, where Macron, if what's happening in France, if it happened in Ghana or anywhere else, they would call it, a crisis, bad governance, and Macron trying to become a dictator. But you notice no one's talking about the political dynamics in France, Germany, when Macron has completely bypassed the vote of the people and is staying in power and refusing to step down. In Africa, that would be called corruption and bad governance. And so I do have an article on that actually talks about this. It's a racialized notion that Africans can never rule themselves properly. And they use these tropes. And the other thing is, we all fall into it. Not we. A lot of people fall into it, because development studies is the biggest major at universities in the US. It's a moneymaker. It's a jobs program for American and European students and academics. But those people on the African continent, you actually have to use that language to get funding. The NGO apparatus, which is a tool of imperialism, is set up to get you to buy into that. So when you write a funding grant, you have to actually articulate how are you going to deal with corruption in Africa and good governance in order for you to get funding. So we've been educated into our own self-hatred and dehumanization. And that's why these structures of power need to be dismantled. Who controls money controls your thoughts and your ideologies. And I think that's an important thing. And I do think we do need to push back against the development apparatus. When we have plenty of examples of corruption, key example, for example, I mentioned in the article is when you talk about these oil contracts, for example, where the oil company gives what, 5% to the government, keeps 95%, and then doesn't pay taxes, right? And you don't even know how much the oil company, how much oil is coming out of the ground because nobody's watching it. But when people write about oil and extraction, what do they focus on? The mismanagement of that 5%, not the theft and illicit taking of the 95% of these corporations. You know, I was able to sneak into a huge gold mining I shouldn't say that, a while ago. I was able to sneak in huge, they call it surface mining, but it's not surface because it's just like deep, right? If you go, I know Galamsey is the issue, but you know, so-called legal mining is just as problematic. Let's remember. And what we realized, they have a runway where they take the gold and put it on the plane and fly out to South Africa. So tell me that's not corruption and theft, but we're focusing on the small people on the ground, right? That's like, you know, getting mad at somebody who steals some gum as opposed to the corporations who steals billions. So, but that we've absorbed that language of which is, I think, anti-Black language, to be honest. Guyana is interesting. Thank you for bringing up CARICOM. CARICOM is the biggest neocolonial tool in the Caribbean. And you can see that Guyana's president, Irfan Ali, is that correct? Dennis, I'm correct, right? Has been playing everything the US wanted him to do. One of the things that people don't think about, the US, as it loses out its economic power against China in particular, it's depending primarily on its military. And so military exercises have become the biggest thing. The US policy, so Southcom, the Southern Command, been very active in the Western Hemisphere. And Guyana, for example, has asked for US military base. The US has access to Guyana's airspace. Mia Mottley, the left's darling, is one of the biggest neoliberals that allow the opening of US military exercises that happen in the Caribbean, that happen in West Africa every year. So we have to also think about imperialism and militarism as a way to actually use these forces as proxies for US to go. And I think BRICS is interesting in the sense that everybody imputes all their wishes and goals on BRICS when it's just, you know, it's starting out. And so because people want something different. And so it remains to be seen, because we also have to remember China and Russia have their own policy needs and so on. And so, yeah.
Thank you so much. I know we are supposed to be done by 2, but if I may, another 15 minutes, is that okay? I know there was some, yes. So we'll take 1, 2, and 3, gone. Okay, 3, do you have a 3? No, okay, 2 and 3. Okay, all right.
Thank you so much, Professor Pierre, for this presentation. My name is Nanayao Reku. 2 observations I made from your presentation. I think the first interesting part is how you use Black sovereignty and self-determination as categories of analysis into explaining current political development in Haiti. But most importantly, I think that Haiti displaces some of the traditional literature about state formation, Black state formation, particularly that says that, and as long as you're in Africa, the African state is neither African nor state in the first place. It's not African because it is a product of colonialism, and it is not a state because it was juridical before it became empirical. And I think that Haiti displaces this analogy, because it has proven to be probably the first Black state of a sort, even if it was a quasi-state, the first Black state of a sort. Maybe the empirical status of its, nature is questionable, but it displaces this analogy. Now, I think post-colonial theorists will look at Haiti as one that offers what they call contrapuntal analysis, uses Pierre Bourdieu's field theory as to how international relations can be done by looking at Haiti's contribution to revolution. In fact, Black self-determination in that instance. Now, secondly, and this is the question.
Do I hear a question coming?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Secondly, how different is the Haitian state from the Black state? State within Africa. How different is the Haitian state from state within Africa? I understand that is a punishment. Haiti's current condition is a punishment for its revolution.
With regards to the youth, what initiatives are being put in place to make sure the idea of Negro democracy and the likes are drilled into the pulses of generations to ensure the zeal doesn't fade away? Because you've been preaching about it, you've been lecturing about it, and we who are young at this moment are getting to know about it. But how are we going to extend this to those who are yet to come, or those who don't know, just like me, who has now known?
As the mic is going to the back, I want to thank you, Princess, very much for this question, because I know there's a lot of anxiety, senses of precarity among young people, and they feel like, you know, they keep being preached to, you're the future, and it's like, what are we saying? So I know she's put a huge burden on you to answer that question, but there was a final answer in the back. Okay, yes, all right.
Yeah. Yes, hello. So I'm Naneke Japan, Master of Philosophy student here at the Institute of African Studies, and I want to say thank you very much for your presentation and your research. So I find myself interested in how academia meets the public and also how it influences policy towards public good. And so I think I'll just ask you a question in that line as to how your research has reached the people to whom you research, which is the Haitians, and how it has been accepted, and also if it has in any way influenced policy towards a change in that region, if you've experienced anything like that. So thank you very much.
The last question is mine. And in the midst of all that you've shared with us and thinking about, you know, whose story it is and how it's presented and the proxy wars and imperialism and all of that, we know that, and Black trauma, if you like, we know that Black people have always engaged in resistance and survival and even thriving in the midst of that. And I'm just wondering, maybe triggered also by, prompted, not triggered, by Princess's question as to, if you can, I know this is outside the ambit of your lecture today, but I'm taking the opportunity of sitting here as chair to ask this, is, can you just say something about what young people especially are doing to, you know, say that this, you people are making us live in a place that's unlivable, but we're living, we're not dying, we're living, we're not dying. Can you say anything about what, you know, some of the little things they might be doing, or even big things? Thanks.
Thank you. I thank you about for the question about the state in Africa. One of the things, the big difference between the Haitian state as it was constructed and the African state in the post-colonial era is that the Haitian state had to start completely anew with no structures in place because it was unthought of, right? It became a state at a moment where slavery was still in power, white supremacy controlled. And so you had to destroy the entire structures and come up with something else. So the state itself was really interesting. And when it comes to Blackness in Haiti, you know, Haiti's constitution was saying to be human is to be Black, to be Haitian. And that wasn't necessarily just about race, because there's a group of Polish soldiers that deserted Napoleon and fought with the Haitians during the revolution. And they were seen as Haitian and therefore Black. So Blackness and Haitianness and sovereignty were structured through the Haitian state in very clear ways. And so there's still Polish Haitians. If you can look it up, there have been documentaries about, you know, they've mixed into the population. So, you know, some of them you can't tell. So there's that. So whereas the post-colonial African state was structured through the terms of the colonial structures, right? Colonial state. And I think, you know, Chika might be better to explain that. But you know, I keep thinking about Basil Davidson's The Black Man's Burden, and the idea that post-colonial Africa and all these other places, right, where the borders were drawn for us, you know, where not only did they absorb and accept the terms of these boundaries, but also took on.
Too much has been politicized, and we don't have professionals doing things that professionals should be doing. But we also need to engage in more resistance. I'm hoping that I think we are in a moment where there's a lot of exhaustion and a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, a lot of, wow, what can I do? I hope that part of in addition to that, we have been educated today. I hope that we have also been encouraged, even though it's a difficult journey, that Haiti is still there. Haiti is still on the map. Haitian people are still there. Haitian people are still saying no way. And if Haitians have been able to resist and survive, we sitting here in Ghana, other places on the continent, definitely should not be shrugging our shoulders and saying, well, okay, that's how it is. What can we do? I for love Ghana and all of that. I understand. But we should not be in a place of giving up. I'm really praying that that is one of the outcomes of what we have heard today. So on that note, I will thank you very, very much. It's been it's a difficult topic, so I'm struggling for the right adjective. It's been edifying, it's been insightful, it's been educative, it's been encouraging, I think, and also inspiring in its own way. So please join me in thanking Professor Pierre for her presentation. So Chika, Dr. Mba gets the last word. And thank you so much, Dr. Mba, for putting this together and for the project that you are involved in. He's always doing something that deals with decolonizing something. And I'm deeply grateful and appreciative. Thanks to him.
Yes. Thank you so much, Prof. Sampo, for I was saying that by the time we finish, we should spend at least another 1 minute thanking you. So, but I really don't want to waste people's time anymore. We were supposed to stop by 2, and you have been so patient. So the first the first appreciation should go to our very loyal, guests, audience, especially our reading group members. For 6 years, they have attended all our events, done all the readings. Apart from the major public events you see, sometimes we also meet. There was a time it was every week, meet to read text on Black African liberation, decolonization, not just in Africa, but elsewhere in the world. So this is an opportunity to thank all of you for all that commitment. And I know that beyond the reading group and beyond this event, that is an ongoing project. It's an endless thing, because as you can see, the question, I think the biggest question here that we don't really have an answer for is how we change the world that we live in, so that the kinds of complaints we are hearing, because in the last analysis, they sound like complaints, even though, yeah, there's Black agents, we do some things, we try to change some things, but it's like what I was saying earlier in South Africa. It looks like for Africa to have sovereignty, or for these things to change, maybe Africa needs nuclear weapons, because it's a world where might is right. But it shouldn't be another lecture. Just to thank you so much. And for Professor Pierre, I don't even know what to say. It doesn't make sense that she's here. She managed to make it, because I know she was traveling all over and was supposed to have returned home maybe on Monday this week. But we, more or less pressured her to eventually make this event. Also because she tells me she loves Ghana. She has been to Ghana a number of times. So it's also credit to the people of Ghana, always welcoming, to people who visit, to immigrants, so to say. So I want to thank you, Prof, for creating the time. And for this, I have listened to different, immediately you started speaking in South Africa in August. I said, okay, this is the next speaker for our hub, because, it was clear. Not only was she able to, somebody was telling me that you people in this decolonial thing, you like to speak complicated, difficult language. But Prof knows how to both inform, entertain, and even though, like Prof kept saying, it's a very difficult topic, it's a powerful presentation regardless, but she manages to do all of this. It's not easy to theorize and manage to make it look like a conversation. We thank you, Prof, for all of this. And that is why we have a number of students here, many of them, and they followed our discussion. We have had speakers who the students later came out to ask me, what did they say? But the fact they were asking questions shows that they understand you. Thank you so much. And thank you, people. Yes, so we will come back. Okay, we have also like 44, 47 persons online. We thank you for being there and participating. Most of the people you have online, a good number of them are members of the reading group, have been with us for 6 years. And the reading group is not closing. That's reading decolonization in Africa today. It's not going to close after this event. It's something that we have established at the Institute and the University of Ghana, so that if you want to have discussions on issues to do with decolonization, whether in Africa or beyond, you can come join us. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your patience. And we look forward to having future events like this, maybe not under other universities, but maybe the University of Ghana might decide to fund programs like this, because it's not always easy. The person you want to come and speak may not be living, may not be working in the campus nearby. This one is from British Columbia, somewhere in Canada. In terms of, so that is one of my main worry. When sometimes people question, some of my colleagues say, where you are getting the money, there are question marks, the funders themselves, are they not controlling? So, but our own governments are not funding research. So I am for anything that, in fact, our governments, many of African governments, are in collusion with the West to do some of all these things. Like, in fact, the lecture is about that. So they are not funding research. So anything that we can do to subvert, I agree with that. I am for anything that we can do to subvert. If Melon gives us money and we can use it to, do whatever we like and in our own interest, then I'm for it. Thank you very much.